Welcome everyone to the March 24th Council Work Session. And at this time, I'll turn it over to Interim Town Manager Russ Overton.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. We'll just go through the agenda real quick, but we're going to review the upcoming meeting schedule, and then we're going to have part 2 of our capital budget discussion led by Assistant Manager Dana Widmar, and then I'll do a few updates, and I don't believe we're having a closed session, Lisa. No. So
Okay.
I'll throw it to Jenny.
All right, so this is the upcoming work sessions and regular meeting. And then we just added our budget open house, another way to get the word out there. For this list, just wanted to call out some dates that we know council members won't be here. So Lori, you've let us know April 28th and April 30th you won't be here. And then when we go to the quarterly, May 14th, August the 13th, and November the 5th. And so, Lori, you let us know May and November you won't be here.
Did I say November too?
And then Michelle and the mayor won't be here for
Correct.
August.
Correct.
So November and May, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Do we want to move them?
That'd be
That's
it.
an option.
Yes.
That's probably recommended.
That's possible.
May is our hardest one to move because we don't have a lot of flexibility there. August, we can look at moving and bring that back to council. We would look at the Thursday before or the Thursday after, and then November, also your direction if you would like to move it.
Could we look at dates for moving the November one? It's also, I know it's election week. I don't know if that matters to other people. I don't know if that means Herbie. I guess they clean up right after Election Day, right?
Yeah, well, they use the gym.
They use the gym, yeah. So, but it might make it a little bit more, well, actually, no, it's after election. Never mind that.
The 3rd.
I would love it, but I also keeping in an understanding that Thanksgiving is 2 weeks after that, or a couple weeks after that, so. I don't know if, am I the only one out in November? I think there's a couple in May.
You're the only one for May and November, and just the mayor and Michelle for August.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
So I'm open if you guys want to move them. But I can also call in remotely. I don't know if Harold and Michelle want to move theirs.
Yeah, that would be ideal. We'll be overseas, so we won't have an opportunity to dial in probably. Or it would be very late at night for us.
I haven't even thought that far ahead.
Okay.
So,
I haven't planned.
Go ahead.
I'm completely flexible, so whatever works best for the group.
Agreed.
I have no conflicts.
so maybe bring back some date options.
I'll bring back date options for August and November. May is the hardest one to move. We looked at options today and we don't really have any.
Are you okay with that, Lori?
That'd be great.
Okay.
So August, we'll bring back options for August and November and to council.
All right. And we'll turn it over to Dana to walk us through the next iteration of capital budget discussion.
So I'm happy to be here in Stacy's place. Not happy for why I'm in Stacy's place, but she'll be joining us again in the future, of course, and doing a lot of work behind the scenes. And everything you're going to see today is to try and describe where we are in the process. Directors have not done additional work over the last week. So essentially, all of the information that is in here is basically the same as it was a week ago, except for that it's been the budget staff that has been working deep into it to double check funding sources, double check amounts, get more into the detail of the projects. So you could see adjustments in numbers that are based on that work, and that work is still going on. So we're going to talk a little bit about the schedule and the process. Of course, get into the capital budget summary by category and by funding source. And that was an effort to give you a sense of what dollar amounts are available in the different types of funding sources that we have. And then we'll get into the projects that are included. We'll take a pause, let you have all the discussion that you want to have on that, and then we can get into the projects not currently included, and we can then take a pause after that and get into as much discussion as you would like. And we would like you to say everything. So if you have particular thoughts about something that's included, please say it. If you have particular thoughts about something that is not included, please say it. So as you know, we're now at March 23rd through the 27th, which is getting into tonight's work session. This is where we really want to hear what you have to say about capital. And then the rest of the process will continue in the future. And of course, a reminder, this tension that we all feel and you all are going to feel as you get into this, which is this concept that people really want to have stable services but lower taxes, which really means more density is necessary. But if there's really want low density, it really ultimately turns into service cuts. And of course, lower density and stable services usually means higher taxes. And the Cary Community Plan was really set up to try and balance this as much as possible for a suburban community, because a suburban community this is very typical in the life of a suburban community to have to go through this time frame as they mature. This is the budget process. We are still in the January through March portion, which is directors working on the capital part of things, and they're about ready to get into the operating part of things. So there have been several boards and commission meetings already. We are logging everything that is given to us as budget input at the boards and commissions. We think everybody here has been logging as well, and we'd like you to talk about it when we get towards the end and get through everybody. But we've included all of their results of how they ranked things. So different boards are obviously going to rank things differently, but we use the exact same process that was with the council here, and so we'd like to go in through that in detail once we get through them all.
Which will be at the May quarterly, is the plan.
Yeah, the last one is economic EDC in May, early May. Not going.
So it's different from.
Oh, there we go.
Yeah, we have a different slide.
Oh,
Yours, we updated that one very late. That one's the most accurate
Okay.
because of a few cancellations. Sorry about that.
This is moving very slowly. Did I go two ahead, or did I just get one
You're
ahead?
right. You're on the next slide.
I'm on the correct one. Thank you. So as a reminder, the budget priorities are these here. You will be seeing updates to the definition. We've continued to maintain the definition that was the draft before, but you will see updates at the May quarterly as sort of a, final, do you agree with the definitions for this year? Do you think it's this?
You've got to say, Mother, may I?
Yes, clearly.
Jenny Trump, yeah.
Thank you. So did you click it last time?
I just clicked it, yes.
The time before that, though?
No.
So it did ultimately work. It just took a while. Thank you. So as a reminder, these are the budget priorities that were identified by council the first time that we went through this, which was at the retreat, so it was all very new. And community safety ranked high, as well as several things then pretty close to equal right beyond that. So when we develop a capital budget, we look at it kind of in multiple ways, and one of the ways is by these categories. We historically had a downtown category. You can see there were no requests because we're kind of moving into a different phase that downtown projects are not as prominent. A lot of work has been done downtown, and the possibility exists we won't need that category in the future. But fire, for example, general government, those will all be consistent that you'll see in past years as well as future years. And if you look at the first column, the March 12th date, that's the dollar amounts that were as a part of the requests that were made for our capital budget. So that was all requests that were made according to those categories. It added up to close to 138 million. And essentially, directors are asked to give their best recommendation. They may or may not collaborate with other departments when they submit in November. And then as time goes on, we get more and more specific and more clear about those projects. So the March 24th date shows you the dollar amounts that have been reduced to get it closer to a budget that would be able to be recommended to you. And so as of today, the dollar amounts for total are at about 84 million. And I'm going to get into the funding sources so you can understand that a little bit more. And you can see that the majority of the cuts are with general government, and that's for a very good reason, because any amounts in that area come directly from the general fund. And just for a little bit more specific information, Parks, Rec, and Cultural Resources, they have some specific funding sources available to them. So Parks payment in lieu. Transit was not reduced at all, and in fact, it is a good portion, particularly in capital, is dependent on a whole nother decision-making process with Wake Transit. And so what's included in this is the results of that decision-making process with Wake Transit, and therefore we agree that it should go forward that way. And then transportation is another area that has additional areas of restricted funding that goes specifically to transportation. Powell Bill is a perfect example for which it's, many millions that we get in Powell Bill funding.
The most important words on that slide are in orange, that this is development in progress and not final, for those watching at home.
And for everybody watching at home, how this works is until it's a manager recommended, so when the council gets the interim managers recommended in May, at that point we then start logging the changes specifically to that are requested. So there's changes that are happening all the way through it, all along, but once we get to that kind of date, then we start to very specifically log the changes that are happening.
And as a reminder also that when the manager makes the recommended budget, that we've been giving feedback all through the process, that it's not staff saying what the budget will be, it's after they include what we think is best based on resident feedback.
Yes. So your feedback is very important to this
having
process.
your feedback earlier is helpful to all of us in development.
Okay. Now we're looking at the capital budget by funding source. And this is, again, to try to give you a sense of all the different funding sources and the restrictions associated with it. So it's very complicated to ask you to add or subtract a specific project because of this right here. However, if you are very articulate about different things that you're interested in, we can then go back and figure out if there's trade-offs that we can do with these things. So what is in front of you today shows utilizing a good portion of the remainder of the GO bond for both Parks and Rec and Transportation. And so no additional changes there. The installment purchase debt has come down essentially since the directors submitted things to where it is today. And so those are things probably like, for instance, it could be large vehicles that they believe we could go another year without making those purchases. General fund transfer is really where the meat of a lot of projects are at. So if you think about a lot of stormwater, if you think a lot of housing, police, a good portion of fire, a lot of what you consider the core of government ultimately comes from this general fund transfer category. And you can see it moved from 52 million down to almost 14 million. The LAP EPA grants, that numbers looks like it's a little bit off. There was a minor change in that over the period, which was a reduction of an EPA grant.
Remind me what LAP stands for again?
Locally administered,
Projects program,
yeah.
Okay, okay.
yes. So federal
gotcha.
funds
And
that are competitive through the region.
And those are federal funds?
Correct.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you.
And they're
The
based on
standard-
criteria that the Metropolitan Planning Organization sets. So they award it. That's what that's what Dana did before she came here.
Right, right.
Yes, yes. So it's a requirement of a federal agency to be objective in their review of things. So they have a whole scoring system, and it's different for transit than it is for bike ped, than it is for streets. And so the LAP grants are something that we make, when we think we have a good application, we will make it for a greenway or a sidewalk or whatever that we believe will compete well.
So Dana, is this, like, LAP is something that town requests for these funds based on different projects, and they will review and say, yes, these projects are relevant and go. Which category does funding go into? Let's say when our Congresswoman Ross's office, she works on some projects and they get us the grants.
So that EPA is an example of that.
Okay.
So it depends on what the category of the grant is. We've been very successful in the stormwater area. I think we're on our third one. The only reason why we're saying you don't necessarily need to put it into the budget this year is we don't think they'll be ready, the feds will be ready for us to spend it until, the next budget round. So stormwater goes to EPA, housing would go to HUD, Housing and Urban Development, of course, EPA, Environmental Protection Agency. And so it really, those are the primary areas we've been successful on, and they rely on the agency associated with it.
Got it, thank you.
And with the LAP funds, it used to be, we're competing with our neighbors. And if we don't spend that money, let's say there took a while longer than we expected something to happen, then the feds could rescind that money, and that hurts everybody. So
Right.
we really got to be careful.
There's kind of a shot clock on most grants.
Right. And the difficulty of that situation right now is that Cary is not unusual in that we have asked for LAP funding in the past for projects that are now costing a lot more money to implement. And there's, when you consider all the transit agencies, there's like 25 agencies that are eligible for these grants throughout the metropolitan region. And that is a universal problem that is happening, meaning they made a request in 25 for a project, and when they got farther along into 26, the pricing is different than what they had imagined. So, which is causing problems in getting the money out the door because they have to come up with more local funds. And
I was going to say, there's a matching there,
yes.
and if you don't do your share, they're not going to do their share. And-
Right,
yeah.
right. Yes, it's just a complex thing that will probably settle out because the construction market seems to be settling out. Someone told me today that rebar was starting to come down. Great news, great news. I didn't validate the source, so, but any movement is good movement. And so, unless it goes way up like it did before. And so, it's just a problem that is happening with construction.
Oh, so Dana, where you mentioned the housing, where the housing budget from? The general fund transfer?
Yeah, so when we put funds towards housing, it's from the general fund. I mentioned it in part because we have gotten some from the federal government that were through Housing and Urban Development. They would have been listed as a grant. So right where we have EPA grant, if we had gotten one for housing, it would have been listed there. But all of our funds that go towards housing are general fund.
So housing also include affordable housing, or it just affordable housing?
Yes, yeah. So typically, the way that we evaluate projects is if there's a gap in the market, which is the more deeply affordable units, and if there's a proposal that helps fill that gap, then we will try to assist with it.
The reason why I mentioned this because last Saturday, Michelle, Carissa, and Sarika, four of us went to the Chatham Estates Conference. And when I come back, a friend of mine told me that in Wake County, the mobile home park are all full. So if they are going to move, they have to move the closest to like 50 miles away. So that's bring me the concern about the working force in our community. So it's also the housing, what the government can do, what Cary can help them to still rent or live in Cary.
Which is why council has committed that $100,000 seed funding for Stable Homes Cary. But as we learned at the Chatham Estates press conference, that is
Needs
not
more.
enough to
Yeah.
rehome 140 households.
Yeah.
It's
It's
heartbreaking.
yeah.
Yeah.
Are the housing fund numbers, because I know you have it on another slide broken out, do they fit into one of those buckets there, or are they in a separate?
General fund.
They are in general, okay. And should we only focus on the 13.6 million? Do we need to understand what was in the 38.9 million that fell off?
We can,
You'll see a list in just a little while.
when we get
Okay.
to the list that is the not funded, generally speaking, it was probably general fund,
Okay,
if that helps you. So
That's
it's not 100% universal, but the non-funded, not currently recommended for funded, probably were the majority
those
of
are.
that.
okay.
I know the purpose of all of these exercises is that we know numbers will continuously change as more input is given. It was the goal to get it down to a certain amount. Like I know when we previewed this before.
Yes, I will get into that in just a second. Thank you for previewing that right now. So the rest of the page, you can see all the different restricted funding, and that's basically the puzzle we work on to make the funding match the project requests. Okay, so if you look at the first three items that are now boxed in white at the top of this, so this is the same slide, same numbers, the first three lines, those are all different types of debt. So GO debt, bond debt, as well as installment purchase debt. And currently, the number for that area totals $52.1 million. And 10% is a good understanding of how much you have to pay in payments to set up that much. So 52 million in debt for a year equals about 5.2 million in debt service for the year. So debt helps get projects built, and typically at a very good rate. We've been very good at historically getting great rates with that. That changes all the time. But then the debt service ultimately is part of the general fund. Okay, general fund transfer. So if you look at the green bar to answer this question. So we had targets in the amount of GO debt approximately that we knew we were going towards, and then we had targets of approximately that we felt like would likely be a general fund transfer amount. So the way it sits today, the note on the left says potential general fund transfer amount, and the way it sits on March 24th, the total amount is $13.6 million. The target, generally speaking, that we spoke to the directors about was about $10 million. And the reason why we gave them that target is because at the end of fiscal year '25, our fund balance was fairly substantially above policy, which then leaves you open for the option of transferring funds to do things, one-time things like projects. And so you can see that that is, we're at a difference now of about $3.6 million. A penny is $5 million. So you can start to see what potential additional cuts we need to have, or what potential implications there are on the tax rate.
And Michelle, probably to get into your question, no right or wrong answer here, or a way to go about doing it, but in November, directors and then departments and budget staff within departments were given direction to ask for whatever you need.
Right.
They weren't given, hey, we have $10 million we're trying to hit, so we've kind of worked down. Some years, in years past, you may have given a target to reach from the start. Again, no right or wrong way to do it. This is the way we did it this year, and that's why it's good to have discussions like this as we get into the projects list to get feedback on kind of what's in or what out. It was out at this point in the game.
And really the theory this year was we had heard that there was starting to feel like a backlog of projects, and we felt it was better to know what they were, and then try to figure out what to do with it, and then work on our targets.
So we're about $40 million backlogged, sort of, on projects.
Sort of, yes.
Based off of what folks think
Yes.
would, be ideally done now,
Yeah, yep.
but could potentially wait
Could be deferred.
or have to wait. This is where I get hung up. There's a difference between we can wait a year to buy a large vehicle, and we just don't have the money. But it's really important. And where does the delay in purchase end up costing us more money overall? And that's where I struggle to get, I know I just asked you to give me the world's most difficult to ingest piece of information. Just want to acknowledge that. But that's where I struggle. It's not terribly different than personal finances, and I've used the clean your gutter to save your roof analogy before. But I'd like to know of that 38.9 million, how much of that is gutter cleaning?
And we can, when we get
To
to
be
that, we can kind of like walk through them a little bit more.
Yeah.
I would probably describe it, I think the best way to describe it is that you'll see that some of these are value choices.
Yeah.
And we are attempting, as difficult as this is, we are attempting to say how we view putting money towards our own projects is the same way we view putting money towards, for instance, a housing project. And how we view putting money towards a construction project is the same way we would view putting money towards a police project. And so it's very imperfect because they don't measure up against each other, which is why the sort of the priority conversation is very important to us. It helps us try to balance those things. And in the end, just lots of questions. Lots of questions helps you get a little bit better sense of how directors feel about it.
So I want to follow up on that point. It's very good. I guess the way I would ask it is, if you delay something, let's say it's $1 million to next year, is it going to be $1 million? Is it going to be $2 million? Is it going to be $5 million? Is it going to be $10 million?
Exactly.
I think that's where you're going.
That's exactly.
And if it's going to be not 1 million and substantially more, I think we need to know about it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a perfect point for teeing that up on what is on Thursdays. The road resurfacing is a perfect, it's like your gutter example. Where do road projects fit in that bucket? Are they under, where are they? Also in general fund?
So it depends on the road project. So as an example, there were some road projects that were part of the 2019 bond.
Right.
So bond could be a potential thing.
But maintenance,
Resurfacing project, probably.
resurfacing. where-
Resurfacing quite often is, we have used resurfacing, bond money for resurfacing. We almost always use Powell bill for resurfacing.
Okay.
And things like, it would not be unusual to say you could use general funds if you wanted to. It's just the general fund area is very competitive in lots of other areas, and so that's
Right.
typically not somewhere we go with it.
The reason I ask is, it was an exciting document. You said that the other day. It recommends an investment of at least $8 million a year to keep us at 75 or 74, wherever we
Correct.
are.
Yes.
Are we at that? Are we at 8 million? So how far away are we from that 8 million?
We continue to lose ground. And the staff report on Thursday night will do a good job, kind of, unfortunately,
Right.
illustrating that.
And I get that, but is that reflected in the budget, is what I'm saying, since we're talking about the
9.5
budget now?
currently is in the budget
What?
for 9.5 million for street resurfacing. In the
What is
proposed
needed?
right here.
And
in
what do
this.
you need?
And what do
Pardon?
we need to maintain?
I think Cassie should
Cassie.
get up and talk a little bit about that study to get that clarity.
So over the past year, I think we were talking about it being around 11 million at the retreat last year. In the staff report, I think it references around 14 million
went up.
now. And we've slid from 77 down to a 76 rating. And so the documents you have in front of you tonight propose almost $13 million for resurfacing. Because of other projects and needs, we did propose reducing that to fund some sidewalk projects. So there was an effort to bring some of that forward, but there's been some shifts, and that's where that 9.5 it's more than we have this year, so more than what we're asking you to approve on Thursday, and begins to continue to address and get back to where our budgets had been.
Okay.
Some of that, though, also funds, say, a consultant doing the rating and/or construction management funds. So, there's some contingency in that you're not paving exactly that amount. And it's subject to cost at the time.
But it gets right back to Carissa's point that we're going to pay a lot more than, what is it, 2-3 million the following year to make that up. It'll be much more than 2 or 3 million.
I learned all about road resurfacing delay hazards from you, Mr. Mayor. So I want to make sure I understand then, when you say there's about 9 point something here, that's after the Powell bill money, which makes up the difference between the total Cassie just described and what you're describing?
So if you were to look at the specific sources here, what is recommended in here, I'm just going on memory, includes some of the restricted transportation, which is some Powell bill,
Powell.
and some of the GEO bond transportation.
Okay. Is there a roof on Powell bill money?
It's
Yes.
based on mileage, and we
Yep.
got like 5 million.
6 or 7, I think. Yeah.
So it's based on mileage?
Yes, we turn in a
Yep.
report annually to figure out what funding you're going to get.
Unfortunately, you add miles, which gets you more money, but it's not enough money to take care of the miles you add. Of course. Yes.
And
Yeah.
you'll see in this that we have to fund school improvements on roads now too, could also be Powell bill or other fundings, which is kind of eaten to that amount.
Yeah, so the original, I guess, intent of my question was we paid all this money for a consultant to tell us how much we should put aside just for resurfacing, inclusive engineering. It was a great report, and are we aligned with that, I guess, is my question. Because saying
Yeah.
11,000, or 11 million or 13 million, because it includes schools and other things, are we aligned with being at least in the recommended area, or are we not?
Not at 9.5 million in the budget.
When you say aligned, do you mean are we funding it at the level that's recommended?
Correct.
And he's saying, no, you are not. 9 million compared to 14.
You,
What
correct.
would it, so it should be 14?
Yes.
That's what Cassie just said. Mhm.
Is that's what that meant?
Yeah.
And I should add.
Thanks for the clarification.
We
That's very
have, as
helpful.
you talk about standards or levels of service, you have not, or we have not decided on what level of service you wish to be.
Sure.
I mean, the mayor, as the mayor knows, what a lot of communities are, and as the staff report goes into detail on Thursday night, what good and fair, and maybe bad is. We've been in the 80s, we're certainly going down. I just bring to the point of you, we don't have a standard at which you wish the rating to be to fund a level. You have best practices that are being presented.
So in that report, they have pictures.
Yes.
Oh, yeah,
Uh,
they're great.
Yeah. And so that's how they actually rate them. They have people that go drive around and rate roads, and that's what they do for a living. So
Yeah.
if you look at those pictures and say, I want it to look like that, then that should be our PCI.
I think that's worth a discussion for this council to discuss what road
Yep.
quality conditions, you know, we expect, because if not, it feels a little mealy to discuss how much funding to set aside for resurfacing and road projects if we don't know what the North Star is,
Right.
what we'd like to.
Even if we want to just keep where we are right now.
Correct.
Which may be right, we're certainly somewhere in the middle of the pack. All the other ones that were higher were basically communities that all built brand-new roads. We're
Yeah,
always
that
rating.
skews your
So
PCI.
excuse it, so we're coming down, but
That's right.
where do we want as a council, as a community to be? Is in somewhere in the 70s, somewhere, you know, what does that number look like? And then in turn, we could get a recommendation from staff on how much money do you need?
Right.
So Russ, if we go by the plan that's being shared right now without this assessment, how do you plan to fill the difference of, I believe, how much, 5 or 6 million?
Just for that one item. This
And
year.
how do you plan to fill the gap? Like, where will you get the money to fill this difference? Because even in the next budget cycle, looks like it's only 9.5 million, right?
That's
So,
right.
and it's gonna take 14 million.
Yes.
So where
And
will we?
rising, likely.
So where do you plan to get the,
You need to, yes, you need to increase your revenue somewhere, general fund, unrestricted. In years past, the one thing that I guess leads to unrestricted general fund capital reserve has been things like transportation development fees. So as we've talked about in the past, development in a lot of ways has been able to fund some of your road construction projects. And as development has slowed, there's less revenues in that capital reserve funding pot to go towards these things. And I think that, more than anything else, has probably led to these discussions with you of how to bring in different types of revenues in the future to fund these types of things. It's interesting to hear, I didn't even know that from Cassie, but staff's consternation is they decided in this iteration of a recommendation by directors is to continue to fund some sidewalks at the cost of not fully funding the street resurfacing.
so let me rephrase what you said, just to confirm my understanding and for those listening. You said that, when there's a new project, that we take some fund for, revenue for transportation development fund, is that what you said?
In a high-growth community where new growth is
So
largely
when the new
helping.
project gets approved in a layman's term, the developer or the applicant gives us a fees
Yes.
that goes into a big pool.
Yes,
And because a lot of times people ask this question, this project was started, they give the money and you're not putting a signal, right? So,
Sometimes.
yes, and it's not a question of that money sitting there. What I'm hearing is that money goes into the pool and that pool is used to maintain the roads.
or, right, your signal projects or other projects that can be funded with restricted funds.
Got it.
And we're not discussing it this year, the balance policy. However, it is a good argument. I think Laurie was the one that investigated the other municipalities, and we're way above, and it makes no sense to not maintain something and spend more the following year when you're squirreling away money and not using that. That's,
Right, if you don't need it.
Agreed.
And we've in the past, y'all have had bond referendums that included resurfacing, sidewalks, other things. There's other ways to get to it besides tax increases, but it's also, could be tax increases.
Because technically, if it was one of our highest priorities and we decided to, we could raise the rate by a penny and take care of that this year,
To
correct?
take care of that possible one item.
Right.
Dana, I have a related question. Last year's budget was billed as a maintenance budget. And Mayor, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think you characterized that as unsustainable, that it was maybe defensible to be in maintenance mode for a year, but much beyond that, you were going to start seeing repercussions. And we're talking about some of that domino effect. This might be unfair to put you in the hot seat here, Dana. How would you characterize this request? Is it in the same mold as last year of being that maintenance? Or is this trying to balance some of digging a little bit out of the hole that we've created, or trying to stay on top of more projects?
And to get clarification, you mean what directors submitted at the full 138?
No, where
that-
we're at now at the 83.9.
Okay.
Can I add?
Or I guess maybe both.
Both.
But my
Let me-
understanding was the
Yes.
137 was basically, tell us what you really, really needed.
Yes.
What it would really take to do everything, not exactly a dream list, but a realistic list of if we were to fund everything in the pipeline, and the 83.9 is whittling that down. And I guess I'm asking, have we whittled it down like we did last year to kind of bare bones, or does it still have enough there to start, again, like digging out of the hole or getting
I want
ahead?
to add to
Yeah.
that
Okay.
question, maybe clarify. Are we really maintaining, or are we still losing ground?
Well, let's put it within a larger context. The 137 million is 1 year. You have about $1 billion in capital needs that have been identified over the years.
Yes.
$1 billion. So the 137, just kind of keep that in mind. That was for a year.
Okay. The way I would describe it, based on the details that I remember and am familiar with for the current budget, which is fiscal year '26, and where we are at with the 84 million for fiscal year '27, I would call it like slow growth, if that's a good way to look at it.
So maybe one rung up from maintenance?
Yeah, not bare bones.
Not full recovery.
But not full recovery, yes. So we often talked about the sales tax revenues having very, very slow growth. I kind of would describe this, maybe not quite as slow a growth as that, but, kind of slow growth, but nonetheless growth, which is better than sort of decline, which is almost where I would have seen it as last year.
Great question.
And this is all before council members weigh in with their own particular
Yes.
Interests.
requests.
And
Which I
operation.
think
Interest.
is
And
what we're
operation.
teeing up.
I'm
Yes.
just, all right, this is all, hey, here are the professionals that said, here's what we like, and then we each have our own
Yes.
potential priorities. Okay.
And we have directors here, so you can, as you dig into things, we can try to give you the discussion that happened to tease out the thinking.
And you may wish to refer back to sheet 9, because I think, Brittany, that was a great question, because your second highest priority exercise result was new capital investment.
Right, that's
So as we
exactly-
classify these, and that's what we're trying to move to, are we hitting the mark with what your overarching priorities are? And as we build this, we'll be able to share more. But some of y'all will remember having budgets where it was very maintenance focused. I do say, because of that 2019 bond money that's still kind of sitting out there. So you look at 21.9, I mean, that's, all of that is, you know, basically new projects.
Yes, yep.
So we're a little fortunate that we still are working under to complete some of those 2019 bond projects.
Yep. And part of what's going on, we're planning on talking with you in greater detail about the bond projects after this year. So we're getting to where we're programming a good bulk of what is left of those dollars. But then we need to really get into the detail of how much is exactly left, you know, what are some of the outstanding projects, et cetera. And that'll be a whole exercise in itself.
Can I ask what process is preferred? Like, you know, Lori said, we all do have some priorities we'd like included in this budget. So we're reviewing capital projects right now, and then we'll review the operating budget. Do you, for example, if this body wanted to see the amount that we invest this next year in, say, road resurfacing and other road projects increase, do we tell you that now? Or would we wait until you've gone through everything and then sort of bring our asks or bring our shifts in priority from what's being described from what the directors and y'all have pulled together thus far?
There is no wrong answer to that. So now and later are both appropriate. It would be most ideal if you can say, this is more important than this.
Okay.
That because just saying we want this makes it a harder.
It's additive at that
It's
point
additive. That's
alone.
correct.
Okay.
I think for me, I feel like let's say we got to have that. Okay, so we've said we've got to have all these things. Now it goes, okay, you got to do 5 pennies on the right. Okay,
Yeah.
we can't do that.
Right.
Then we can, so as a group, do you want that kind of process or what? That's, I guess.
I will leave that up to Russ to answer.
Well, I like that you're asking the question, because one thing that comes to mind is a new council.
Yes.
You have new folks that are on the council as a result of the election. In an election year, you almost can't get to it much quicker than the retreat. So, you know, there's probably some way to back into this a little earlier. And at the same time, this year, we showed you more at the retreat than we've shown you in a long time. So I think this level of discussion, especially moving forward, because really, you could do this in July, thinking towards the next year, if you wish, because as you saw in the prior, one of the prior slides, budget's a year-round job for all of us.
Yeah.
So I think this year's probably a little clunky.
Yeah.
And maybe we get better, you know, moving forward with planning and priorities. And then if you throw, if there's council desire to want to talk about bond referendums and things like that, then you really get into, you know, when do you need to do it to meet certain dates on the calendar. So I would hope that at some point in our future that we have that conversation.
We have that conversation too, yeah. And I say that because, you know, I see a lot of these as they're competing priorities in a lot of cases,
They are.
but there's also, it's not just this or that to me. It is, let's say that we as a body discussed, just using this as an anecdotal example, because this is sort of where my brain is leading me. Let's say that we wanted to prioritize road projects and road resurfacing over net new sidewalks where there isn't currently a sidewalk. Is there a third option where we prioritize resurfacing and road projects where we can simultaneously do sidewalks and it saves money and it's an easier project or it's less disruptive? I don't know the ins and outs well enough to know where those trade-offs benefit both dollars and cents and, you know, the community and like that. I also don't know the intimate detail of when you've got a list of sidewalks and a list of road projects, what the logic applied is to prioritizing those. But I think those kinds of questions, it's very similar to my approach to almost anything. I prefer to do all of this, then all of that, not a little bit of both. And that's part of my sort of hammer approach at stuff, right? That doesn't make it the right way to go about it, but it might be worth having that kind of competing priority discussion with all of us.
And to be fair, the way you just described it is exactly how the downtown redevelopment happened.
Yes.
Right? Which is, we're not going to
point.
just keep doing it a little bit at a time. We're going to invest a lot in it, get it going so that.
And then move on.
And then move on.
Yeah.
And to be fair, if you're a constituent in District C or D, and you're waiting for that sidewalk connection so you can walk safely along whatever road, you might not come downtown, but that sidewalk gap closing could make a really big difference for you. So I think having a discussion when we get to it about what matters to each of us would be really helpful to hear what every single person thinks with respect to their own, either their district or something that they care deeply about, like tennis or whatever.
And an update on what the real costs are at this point, and is there any hope? You know, rebar, we talked about rebar like it was a leading indicator on the economy. The cost of rebar is coming down. Well, is the cost of sidewalks potentially ever going to come down?
We'll see.
And the cost of asphalt has
Gone up.
Gone up.
43%.
Yep.
because of
43%
That's
increase
what
on
the
asphalt.
in the
Oil.
report we got.
Hey, yeah. That's, I'm not trying to hyper-complicate this. That just is the questions my brain is, and I get stuck on them, and they sort of loop in my head when we go through these large numbers.
We would like you to ask the questions. I could probably elaborate a little bit on some of Cassie's thinking. For example, this year is probably slightly different than the decision-making they might have made 3 years ago, or potentially different than the decision-making they make 2 years from now. And that is in part because we have projects that are fully designed.
Yes.
And so if you think back to what we went through in the past year and a half, too many projects, not enough funds, and the net result is that some projects, and sidewalks are one of them, are fully designed, sitting, waiting to be done, even though they cost a lot more. It's just a decision-making process. And so from the perspective of our transportation department, they were trying to balance that a little bit.
That makes perfect, so we've already invested in those projects. You know, that's the
Yes.
kind of stuff I need to know to
And
make my brain.
we can highlight a few that dropped on or off the list. And I think some of this could just be a math exercise in there. You could rate everything, but then you lose the values discussion
Exactly.
that you have in it.
The nuance.
And then a bigger discussion at some point, it probably does get into fund balance discussions. There's not a dedicated funding source for capital. And there probably really, with this exception of some unrestricted or restricted funds, your $10 million in fund balance is from savings this year.
In the past, yep.
Or the past, exactly. I mean, we aren't putting 2 pennies to,
Right.
fund, the general fund. And you could, but we've not had that level of discussion of what funds capital. Utility fund being different, we're not talking about utility fund tonight, but the ratepayers pay, utility fees, and it's a different conversation with
Right.
regards to utility fund funds versus general fund funds. And everybody gets very caught up in what the tax rate is, and that's not our conversation for tonight.
Yeah.
So just for the people that are watching, we have to have a balanced budget. We cannot spend more. And so therefore, almost always, or it has to be always, we have money left over. That money left over is above the policy.
Yes.
We take that and use it as revenue for the next year.
Use
That's where
it,
the 10
yes,
million.
typically for
That's a
capital.
one-time.
One time.
expenditure.
And so
And that was, for the full time that you've been mayor, that's the way it has
That's what
traditionally been done, except for a few years, 23, 24, that kind of timeframe.
So a future exercise that I want you to look into, especially talking about sidewalks, we look at $1 million a year roughly. What is the break-even point hiring a crew?
Well, Lisa.
You don't have to answer that.
Well, actually, we've learned some new information
Yes.
on that, and Lisa
Yes.
may as well share it.
Yes, so state law restricts how much of your own forces you can use to construct projects. So you're limited to using $200,000 worth of labor on a project and up to $500,000 of a total construction project. So
Per project?
per project. So
Oh,
you
so
can do
is each
very.
sidewalk considered a
Well, there's
project?
also language about, not breaking things up into small pieces just to avoid the statute.
Like a sidewalk in West Cary, is
So-
it different than a sidewalk in East Cary?
Potentially.
Okay.
But-
I mean, you wouldn't break up a mile of sidewalk into,
Yeah.
2 quarter
segments.
miles, yeah.
At that rate, though,
It's not a lot of work.
That
It'd be
may
a very
not
small
prove-
sidewalk.
worth hiring full-time employees. that you
And the
have to
investment in
staff.
equipment.
And investing in the equipment and the capital cost in the equipment to do $500,000 worth of work, when we're talking about millions of dollars worth of work. It might set, I don't know what the offset, if it even saves anything, but that was kind of new. And I think you said it's also prevents competition against.
Yeah, I mean, the point of it is that to allow contractors to compete for work, and so the local government can't build up its own construction contracting force and not use local contractors. So that's the
But we're
purpose of the
not-
legislation.
We can do that with picking up trash, with services.
Yes.
Services.
Fascinating.
That was a good word.
But that was something that had been brought up in the past, and it came up in some small groups. Lisa looked up the law, and it was a little disappointing with.
Really wanted Chris's idea of a sidewalk department. to
Yes.
Department of
We
Sidewalks.
got to hear about it.
Do any municipalities do that, or?
Not in North Carolina.
Jimmy, I mean, we do some very small projects.
Oh, yeah.
He's nodding his head. I think we have a concrete mixture. Yep. Yep, so we do some.
And there's no
very-
variation by size of municipality.
No, it's a state law across, now, I haven't researched every charter of all 525 towns in North Carolina. There could be a town that has local legislation that allows them to do
Sure.
more.
Right.
But the general state law is $500,000.
So great idea. Doesn't sound like we're going to be able to do it.
How is the bidding process? Is that very competitive, or there are only a few two options for us to choose from? Or there may be more?
I think it's been pretty competitive. I mean, you'll see a bid tomorrow night.
Lowest qualified bid, right?
Lowest responsible and
Responsive.
responsive bidder. We always have to take the
With
lowest
two.
bid.
You have to have a minimum of
Three.
two bids? Oh, three?
3 to do an opening.
Ah, okay.
It's very good information because a lot of people don't know our process of bidding, or just we choose one, or they come to us, we have to consider carefully
We
to
do.
spend.
Also following state law.
Yes. A very regimented process under state law.
And I just want to build on something that Russ said. Doesn't make it easier, but the sprint to the adoption of a budget is a very difficult time. It's difficult on staff, it's difficult on you. The more you engage in it, the more difficult it is. So another way then you start to look at it is then jumping right back in and looking more and more long-term and starting to get, so logging the questions you have, getting the information so that each time you're getting more and more information gets a little bit easier.
And some of the thinking, as we jump to the project list here in another slide or two, you're going to start seeing, I mean, we say this on our website, sidewalks, if you fund it the first year, it's probably 3 years before you can design, buying right-of-way, construct. It's nothing for any other bigger capital projects. It's 3, 4, 5 years, depending on so a lot of times you're funding the very early planning stages, or as you'll see with fire stations, design. So you can think of it as some of these projects being shovel-ready, maybe more important to bring the construction funds to them now, because if construction keeps going up, you wished you would have done it a year ago. You can't predict the future, and it's hard to get ahead of something that's 5 years from now.
And that's another great variable. And so how much will sidewalks change in a year if we delay those? And how much more is maintenance if we wait a year?
Pretty much everything's going up.
Yeah.
All while
Yes.
things are going up.
Except rebar.
Apparently, except
Yes.
rebar.
It's apparently the bubble is burst on rebar.
And revenues.
At least temporarily.
So that means every term, 4 years, we want to do something until we need to be re-elected for the next term to see the
If you
result.
want to do a big project, please plan on getting reelected.
Several times.
Several times.
Okay. So we've had lots of discussion. I don't think we need to necessarily pause here because then we can get right into the actual projects. So what you're looking at here is what we're calling the Director's Revised General Capital Budget Summary. So this is not the utility fund general capital, it's just the general capital. And of course, this is development in progress. It is not final. We continue to refine numbers. We continue to refine descriptions. All of that is still happening while you're getting this information. I'm going to go real just high level on some things here without getting into detail, just for everybody who's watching. You can, booth is kind of self-explanatory. That's for Booth Amphitheater. DEV stands for development. So that relates to some development we sometimes pay fee payments on. And then development also includes our schools where we're obligated to do certain things with roads associated with schools. Fire, of course, is fire. GM stands for general maintenance, and it lists a lot of the things that our Public Works Department does to maintain our existing facilities. Go Cary is self-explanatory, and the majority of that, all but the $75,000, is all part of the Wake Transit funding. And the $75,000 is a base commitment required as part of our agreement with Wake Transit. And then housing, of course, is all of the various housing programs. And I'm going to go to the next slide to get through all of it, and then we'll come back. Does that sound okay?
Yes.
Okay, so PED is pedestrian, so, primarily new sidewalks. Police is police. Signals relates to various locations of intersection signalization. The soccer park is Wake Med Soccer Park. STM stands for stormwater, and so those are stormwater-specific projects. Street intersection is doing more than just the signal. It might be doing crosswalks and realignment things. And then street lighting, of course, throughout Cary. And then street maintenance, that's where you're going to see the primary money. So the bridge and culvert repairs, we have a program that makes sure our bridges are in good condition. It goes throughout Cary. And then, of course, the street maintenance is the one that you all have been talking about here. And then Carpenter Fire Station is identified as a new street widening project. Let me see if there's one more. There is one more. The remainder include tech, so various funding that is required for tech initiatives, tennis park, traffic calming. Turf is the artificial turf replacement. USA Baseball is the USAB, and then vehicles, the many, many different vehicles that we have here for Cary. And I'm going to go back.
And then, Dana, then we've attempted to not highlight things like in part one, so the last work session, and we just have two columns that have, yes, it's a bond project, and yes, it is funded from the previously unfunded reassessed list. So if the yeses
in the second
draw
column.
your attention to anything, just we can talk about them as you go. I should also add, there's probably a great example, just as we said, the fire station in this example is kind of the first year, although maybe it's really not, because for Station 10, we've already programmed and bought land. So the previous council made a previous decision to fund, a project. And so, but think of that as the first year, whereas you go to Carpenter Fire Station as the 9.5, that's in addition to what's already been funded and spent. And in some previous handout, that if you have your book, it has more detail. If it was already a funded capital project, it will have detail on what the funding was up to this point.
I think, Russ, both Fire Station 10 and 11, we own the land.
Yes.
Yes.
We
Yes.
finished the design phase, and we probably just have to move to the next, is what I remember.
This would be the design.
This would be design. Okay.
One would be land that is maybe jointly owned, possibly, with Wake County.
Rafter
In
Park.
O'Kelly Chapel, I remember we bought that land sometime ago.
Yeah.
Which was
Yeah.
probably.
5 years ago.
Yes, which was a good decision at that moment in time.
Cheaper.
Chief Cooper is available if you have specific questions.
I have just a couple, is it time for
Yes.
questions?
Please ask away.
The one thing I think is very interesting that I think the average resident might not know is the fact that we have to reimburse the school system for the road improvements required around the school. That's $800,000 that the school doesn't have to pay. Now, granted, the school is also us too, because we're taxpayers, but sometimes that, people are very surprised that their Cary tax dollars, that part, has to fund the school district's impact. But the one I guess I have a couple of questions on, the housing numbers, so all of those items, that looks like it equals about 1.8 million. And you all were talking that we had more investment, like CDBG and other funding, although it looks like some of these may come from CDBG. Where do you see us from a numbers perspective on affordable housing at the end of the day that is invested?
I'll let Heather, if you want to stand up, or I'd be happy to.
I saw you giving her the eye.
Yes, I'd be happy to get into the detail that I know.
Yeah, that's a great question. And the numbers that are up here are just representing the general funds portion. And most, not all, but most of our housing expenditures have some blend of CDBG funds. We try to use those CDBG funds when that's possible, but there is a cap on how much you can use for services. So we are still working with where we can maximize the CDBG funds and then what really needs to have general funds. That plan will go for public comment next week because we'll be bringing it to you in April. So we'll have a tentative draft for the community to see, and that will include the forecasted CDBG funds, which, like these budget numbers, we don't know until HUD approves that final allocation.
So is this all, this does not include CDBG funds? Is that what you're saying?
That's
Does not.
correct. It
That
does
is
not.
correct.
Which is
Just
a
general fund?
Just general fund.
General fund. So it looks like that's $1.8 million of general fund.
And CDBG funds, we're projecting about 743. Yeah, is our number for this year. And then there are some other federal grants that are potentially, there are applications out there for that we've done on behalf of some of the projects that would also, flow through Cary and would be projected to benefit some of these projects as well.
So with the addition, just doing some rough math, so that'd be about 2.5 million combined without knowing any additional federal funding. And last year we did 3.6 million, so it's about $1 million less than we invested last year of our own plus CDBG money. Okay.
Yes.
If I were giving feedback, I would love us to be at about a penny on the tax rate of affordable housing investment, which works out to be about 5 million. And the reason I say that is because 2023, we had 9 million invested. Now, a lot of that was ARPA money. In 2024, we did 5 million. And then last year, we did 4.2 million, right, if you include it. And so I think what we've heard from our residents is they want more of a investment in affordable housing initiatives. So I would love, I love what you guys have done already, and I'd love to fully fund what the ask might be so that we could get to a place where we could have more affordable housing options.
Maybe a little bit of discussion, if you don't mind, Heather, on readiness of a project. So some of those funds that you referenced from prior years sat for long periods of time because there were not projects that are ready. And so we've been working really hard within our own projects to very much focus on readiness of a project, and Heather can talk a little bit about that as it relates to housing as well.
Yeah, in particular, the line item there that says gap financing, that's really primarily used for large developments, like Greenwood Forest Baptist Church is one that you all awarded funds to last year. That's also a tax credit project. So by the time they ask us for gap financing, they know their total development budget, and they've lined up many other sources of equity and other grants. So we work often with developments for several years. You may have awarded them pre-development funds for a couple of years to help them get through the first couple of years. And then they really know their total development budget and what their gap is. So that gap financing really does come to projects that are fully ready and ready to come out of the ground within the next couple of years. So we do have other ones that are in the pipeline that are working toward that. And that's what those pre-development costs tend to help with, to get a project ready for the kind of bigger dollars that come when they are looking to move toward development.
And credit to both Heather and Mary on this area. The level of sophistication is going up and up, both in how we're functioning and the expectations that we have, the information, et cetera, as well as the developers and partners that we have in the community.
No, and I want to first say this whole idea of pre-development soft cost financing is brilliant. Being able to help a church that is interested, like as we have talked to a couple of them recently, because they don't have the funds to even explore an idea. So being able to help them, get to a point where they know whether or not it's feasible is a brilliant idea, because they're the ones that have the land. And I really kudos to your group for doing that. Such a great idea. If I said you had $5 million, let me ask it this way. What changes would you make in the capital improvement to actually use it? I mean, if we made $5 million available, could you help build more affordable housing?
I can speak to the applications that we received this year. We had one project that asked for, that would be the Greenwood Forest Baptist Church DHIC, the Caring Place project, asked for a larger amount than we're recommending at this time. So there is a bigger gap there that could benefit from some additional funds. There are several other projects in the pipeline that aren't fully ready for development gap financing, but we'll continue to do some pre-development work. And that nonprofit capacity building is also a very good investment. That helps not just churches, but organizations start to test the feasibility. So that's money, small amount of money that's invested to kind of yield bigger projects down in the pipeline. So yes.
Is that a yes, that if you had more money, we could make a bigger difference?
I could share with you Greenwood Forest Baptist Church, DHIC, and the Caring Place asked for $1.5 million as their gap request from us. And we were recommending potentially $750. They're also still in consideration for gap funding from Wake County. So it's a little bit of the gap. They identify a gap and then they sort of see where they potentially can find the resources for this. But they did ask for $1.5 million.
And that's the example that a federal grant application has been made on their behalf of $1.5 million, which they did a lot of work to help make that happen. They just weren't an eligible applicant.
Okay.
And I want to ask some clarifying questions, because I don't know that, well, I know y'all as a council have never had this discussion, but many of you, it's of a great interest to you. So when you say about having a penny on the tax rate, are you being very literal that you wish to have the tax rate raised to equal a penny?
So the reason I brought it up is because when advocates have come to us, and because Raleigh has a penny on the tax rate dedicated for it, many municipalities do have that. I was not suggesting that we raise taxes a penny. I was more suggesting, do we have that amount? Because we've often talked to those organizations and say, we don't need to dedicate it because we have been doing that or more.
Right.
Kind of like the whole discussion of public art, a penny for public art. We've had that before. We dedicate more than a penny to public art, so.
It's also if you wish to get towards having a penny, but right now you have no dedicated tax.
Correct.
Half a penny, quarter penny, whatever you want to chop it, 5 cents, I guess, Susan, since pennies don't exist. We figured, what's the tax
We-
rate?
We've
according
just
to a
moved
nickel?
on, we've just moved on to nickel.
Sorry, it's gonna,
That's right.
it's gonna be the future. Tax
One
rate
nickel,
according to a
two
nickel.
nickels.
I would maybe also offer that sometimes what happens, and this is why we had kind of big awards in prior years, is that these developments do take several years to grow. So while in 1 year you might not have many projects, but several years later, a project would consume a large amount of money. So, and that's sometimes why many communities don't fund this work in the annual, capital budget, because it needs longer-term thinking, longer-term capital thinking.
But I bring it up, if there's interest by council in having dedicated funding to housing, then we need to have that discussion, because otherwise, we don't have dedicated funding towards housing, and
And that's
it's,
why I have requested for that work session for housing. It's on my list, right? So I
It's-
wanted to kind of discuss that, affordable housing.
yes, which
I-
isn't specific, unless you want it to be specific to funding by tax rate for housing, I think we took it as a broader discussion on.
So
housing.
I was probably focusing more on where do we get the funding from, understand that a little bit more in depth since we have newer people, and I would like to understand this a little bit more myself and help partner with organizations and build the capacity. It's definitely a need in the community, and how do we stay ahead, because we will add 50 units and there's the need for 100 units out there. So how do we, especially like with ADUs, how do we work with HOAs across Cary to make sure that they understand what we have approved and,
Yes.
how can we work with them to make those changes in their bylaws so that they can, start letting people build these units. Things like those, that was my intention.
Well, to put a finer point on what Lori was saying, my perspective is a little more, I feel as though quite a few members of this council have committed to a penny on our tax rate to affordable housing, verbally said yes. And it doesn't have to be capital projects, though. I think there's a ton of value in any kind of, whether it's services, like where the spending is. I would never be prescriptive, Staff knows a lot more than I do on where the most impactful places are to spend that money. But that we honor the spirit of that investment, to me, is really, really important.
So the April meeting is a great time because the process that we go through for distributing the CDBG dollars, we also we do the same process for general fund dollars. And we do our best to give you the full big picture of how much money is a part of that, so staffing costs, et cetera. And so I believe it'll be towards the end of April, but even some of the stuff that's going to start to come out next week is getting closer to accurate about what kind of funding levels. So I think we're looking in the 3.4 million range, plus the 1.5 million grant application. So that gives you a sense of where things are at.
Yeah. Well, like Sarika was saying, when there's a larger need than we're currently meeting, I think the Greenwood Forest DHIC project is a good example of where this is a higher impact project, because of the number of units that are being created. So I'd be very interested in discussing supporting their gap funding needs if the federal funding can't be found. I think that's something that maybe as a body we could discuss. Do we know, is there a confidence level on those federal funds? Does anybody have?
We usually get it.
We've been very successful.
I just assumed when y'all, because was told about this earlier, and I just assumed that, you wouldn't be bothering if you didn't, you know what I mean? Like, of course you know the process and such, so I just was working under an assumption of confidence that they would get those.
We started doing it quite a bit about 2020, And I would say what we're getting more sophisticated with is the administrative burden that is coming with it. So recognizing, okay, this is what the ask is, and this portion needs to go towards ensuring that we can handle there's a lot of administrative burden with the federal grants. And so it's more sophisticated.
And y'all are working with a couple of faith communities, right? Which others are you working with to support them?
We are. Some of them, we're in very early, they're just really in inquiry stage with us. So, but several around Cary are starting to get curious. Sometimes it's because, they have a big piece of land, they're not sure what they want to do with, or they're having, maintenance issues that they're trying to fund. So we send them, almost all of them, to Pastor Wes at Greenwood Forest Baptist Church. But there's also a pretty large national community that's developing capacity around this. So we're connecting them with each other. So that is a big area of opportunity because they have well-located patient land, usually, which is a subsidy in and of itself. Yeah.
And the Pastor Rickhouse, who has also, working out of the Duke Divinity School, has also offered his engagement. They did a project. It didn't work out for their land, but
He was at Cary First Christian, do I
yeah,
remember correctly?
and he's offered to meet with churches as well. I think one of the important things for me is to ensure that we're able to share that we are making that commitment, no matter where the money comes from. If it comes from the federal government, CDBG, our own general fund, that we're utilizing those resources to make a difference. And I would like to, see a housing bond on an upcoming ballot as well. It was very, very close, and I think our residents would like to see that as well.
So don't write down the 1% yet. Not voted on.
No, you have not.
No, just.
And the reason we haven't in the past, because that's more like throwing money at an issue. We'd rather be specific on what the asks are and then fund those asks. And that's why we never had a policy in the past. So I would like to set, when we discuss fund balance policy, when we discuss, this would be a perfect time to discuss that too, and how it would be needed. If we could have a bond, that would be perfect. I would love to discuss all of that, rather than, I feel rushed and I feel like, oh no, we're adding more. It means something's got to go away or the tax rate's got to go up. And I'm like, that's how I feel right now.
Yeah, and I wasn't committing to that. I was just using that as our talking point.
I didn't take it that way, but at
Okay.
the same time, if the council's goal ultimately is to have 1 penny spent on housing, we wish to
Right.
hear it.
Yes.
I think, the objective is that how do we pull our partners and resources together to build that support for affordable housing. Like, I had a very constructive conversation with Congresswoman Deborah Ross, and she gave wonderful feedback for Shelley, and she's been working with Shelley. She said this, so past 3 years, she's been getting us funding for stormwater, but this year she said she will get funding for affordable housing. So, that will help us with this bucket, and we should continue to pursue those kind of partnerships, I would say.
Good feedback.
So last week, Laurie and Michelle, we went to the affordable housing event in Garner, and I saw Raleigh, Garner, Apex, Marsville. They're all focusing on affordable housing projects. Made me feel a little bit nervous because Cary is like here, they're like there. And I was thinking if people like the working force and teachers, they are all moving to other towns, that means the Cary is not so competitive on workforce. Everything will be more expensive if you want to hire someone and drive to Cary to work every day. So the end users, like our consumers, will eat that result. So if we don't provide enough affordable housing, those people need to live in Garner or Holly Springs. So it will affect our economy. That's our small businesses will be affected a lot, or the hospitals. So a lot of people work in the hospital.
There's a lot of thoughts on those comments.
Yeah.
One, we created a desirable place which drives up demand, which drives up costs. Our average median income is $135,000. To get workforce housing would have to be half that. And that's going to be really hard to do,
And still worth doing.
really.
I've been hearing how hard it is to do for like the last 10 years. And I feel like it's one of those things where we really need to throw down on this issue. Because it is so intractable.
So you can try to spin your way out of it. I don't think we will ever do that. I think if you provide transportation options, which there's a lot in the works with BRT, regional rail, all kinds
Well,
of,
that's
to get your
5 or 7
workplace.
years down the road.
Well, I mean, you got to work on all of these because I don't think you'll have enough affordable housing to house all the teachers, firefighters, police officers, service workers. You're not going to be able to do that.
I hear you.
Unless you take the quality of life and the average medium income down, then you might be able to do it.
Yeah,
And
I
that's
hear you,
not the
but I
goal.
would like to fail trying. I
Okay.
would like for us to try, I think 921, or Marigold, is a great
Yeah, I guess.
pilot for what we can do on town-owned land. And once that gets going, I think we have other town-owned land. That's a perfect example of a place that's going at 50% median income. You know, we're all looking for new ideas. If there are other new ideas, I would love to see us be as innovative as staff have been in that respect, because everybody's waiting. I mean, Apex has done their own thing, but everyone's really waiting to see how successful that will be, and I think could be a model that other communities would leverage too. But it's one that's targeted at that, you know, firefighter, police, teacher.
Yeah.
And it's a huge partnership. There are a lot of partners. in that one.
Absolutely,
And
absolutely.
that's what it's going to take to do these
I
projects.
totally- I
We
totally
can't,
You're right.
personally, I don't think we can fund our way out of this issue. There's just no
But I
way.
think,
But we should
you know,
try.
there are places where I always feel like, why reinvent the wheel when it's already invented? And there's so many places like New York City, super expensive, but people have to live there, they have to work, you know, it's a place for everyone. Like, you know, kind of study their model and understand what are the things that, you know, places like these have built to build that, you know, affordable housing structure. I mean, those would be good studies I would be interested in learning about those.
So
Heather's
when-
like an encyclopedia. Just
So-
talk to Heather.
Yeah, I know.
She's worked in the Northeast as well.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
so when I hear we need to try, it makes me think this is the number one priority over everything,
That's why I ran for office.
Yeah, me too.
over everything.
Yes.
Maintenance, everything. Everything else is lower.
Well,
Close second.
I don't want people's houses to burn down.
Okay?
I mean,
So I'm not
Public
where
safety
you
is
guys are.
important. Public safety is, I mean,
I think
public
it-
safety came in first, right?
This year, public safety is first, and
So
I
I
totally
think
agree with that.
I think I'll tell you my perspective. The existing residents and their quality of life is important to me.
Okay?
But, you know, as and when we get the opportunity, we have to find ways to build affordable housing to the point where Councilwoman Wong said, you know, that we have to build workforce housing.
Totally in agreement.
And we have to keep trying and for
Totally-
that.
I totally agree.
But that does not mean that we take away from our existing projects and priorities.
There's-
At least that's where I am.
Yeah.
There's no community in the nation that has solved the affordable housing.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, one person cannot.
So we're not going to solve it.
No, we cannot.
If you'll indulge me in a quick story, and it might be a parable that you're familiar with, so I'll condense it as quickly as possible, but it's something that's resonated with me for years, is the story of the starfish. Does anybody know the stories of the starfish? Yes, right? And so the quick version is, there's a woman on the beach. There are hundreds, maybe thousands of stranded starfish, and she's throwing them one by one back into the water. And a man walks up to her and says, "Why are you wasting your time? You are never going to save all of these starfish." And the woman picks up another starfish and puts it back in the water and says, "Well, it made a difference to that one."
Help that one. Yep.
And that has been such an instructive parable for me, that just because you can't solve the problem in its entirety doesn't mean it's not worthwhile to do the work you can for, in this case, the people that it helps. And so, you know, it's akin to also not letting, you know, the perfect be the enemy of the good. And so I agree, Lori, that sometimes trying, there's a lot of value in trying.
And
And
that
I
kind of.
don't disagree. I'm just trying to be a realist here.
Yeah.
And then I'm trying to understand everybody's priority, and to me, it sounds like the priority of this council is affordable housing over everything else. And that's not where I am. so.
If the General Assembly would allow us more funding area, I mean, like if we had diverse funding opportunities, ways to bring in revenue, I don't feel bad saying that I would be fully in favor of raising the tax rate significantly, knowing that we could put additional money into helping the people who can't afford it and still give the people all of the amenities that they want. There's like a set of people who moved here from a place where the tax rate was so much higher, and your tax rate is so low, and it's so much nicer here. And then there's there's a group of people who've lived here their whole life. They inherited their grandmother's home and they live here, and or they've raised their family here and now they're retired and they can't pay their taxes. They're struggling. So that's my perspective.
Well, I could have a whole nother discussion about paying taxes, but.
You all are struggling with exactly what this issue is all about. And the concept of helping one is in part why we really very much appreciate the sort of regional approach with Wake County. We work very directly with them to make sure that they're partnering with us on things and moving forward projects. And it's also because the issue is housing is a regional market. That it's just the reality for anybody. Cary is competing with Garner. That is a reality. And it's just the way things shake out is how, different people are going to different locations based on the availability of what's there. So when you keep moving forward, trying to add more that diversifies it, that's really the key, is within any community, fitting within this regional market, if you can diversify the different types of housing that is available, then you're going to keep attracting different people to it.
And I just wanted to jump in and say that it's 7 o'clock, so just a little time check here.
So if the passion of this council is affordable housing, let's do a bond. Let's do it this year. Let's do affordable housing bond.
Yeah, we'd love to have
Do
some
it.
discussions too. You know what I was just thinking? In all fairness, I know what I said when I was running for office, but you weren't at all my campaign events. You're a busy man. You don't know what Michelle said and what Brittany said. Well, I know a lot of what they said because I was at a ton of their events, right? Like, Sarika stood and listened to me talk. She has, I think, a better firsthand understanding than you do because you weren't at all of our events all the time. Do you know what I mean? Like it's.
But I'm not disagreeing with.
Oh, no, I'm saying I think it's worth us having a discussion so everybody hears all the same things. Instead, what we've got is some people have heard some. Yeah. So
I
you
think
can
there
hear
are
it,
two
like,
aspects
firsthand.
of this conversation. One is affordable housing, and the second one is housing affordability. I think we want both, and that's where we are struggling, in my view, because we want to do the right thing for our residents today. We want to make sure we don't make it too expensive for them to live here, and that's going to require some commitment from the council, and I'm committed for that. I'm pretty sure everybody else has that commitment because I see them struggle when people are not able to sustain the taxes that they have to pay. But affordable, like we are competing, and there is definitely that need for attention. But I agree with you, we may not be able to achieve everything overnight or maybe in next 10 years. But if we start putting some
The 1 to 2
resources-
million, I'm not going to do anything.
No, that-
Go ask for the 30,
Well,
Maybe 40 or 50 now, but yeah,
I mean,
think
whatever.
The thing is that unfortunately we're all doing here, as we, violently agree from different areas, is that it's not really just affordable housing. It's economic development, right? It's workforce attraction, right? It's schools and public safety. They all fit together into a stability plan for neighborhoods, right? It's about neighborhood stability. And we unfortunately are only carving it as affordable housing or housing affordability, but it really impacts all of that. Because if a teacher has to drive because they can only live in, north of Wake Forest or south of Garner, their quality of life is impacted. It makes it harder for them to do their jobs. And so having the people who serve Cary be able to afford and live in Cary, as well as the people who have been here forever, having more money available for preserving natural affordable housing, basically the affordable housing that's in Maynard Loop, I think is worth investing in those families who made Cary what it is today.
I feel like I'm being painted as somebody against the
Oh, no, you're not,
no.
you're not. You're
Like-
just being realist and
And I'm like,
Middle of
if you want to
universe.
do something, do it. The $1 million is not going to do it.
yeah.
Well, yeah, I mean, I
Like,
think.
go
that-
big or go home. I mean, geez.
Well,
Yes,
since
Harold.
you brought that up.
Go, Harold, go. Okay.
And I think when you go big, when you go big, it's probably not going to be this year.
Okay.
Because it takes about
That's what,
5 months to get through the process,
Okay.
right? That Kim and I just conferred, she will talk with our advisors tomorrow.
Okay.
We do not believe that based on the calendar that's required under state law to do all the things, that you can get it done this November.
Get what done?
A bond referendum.
Oh, okay, I thought you were talking,
A bond referendum on the ballot for this November. But I want you to know that we will have that conversation tomorrow. Based on the quick way we do the math, we don't get there. We don't get with the required numbers of days of this, that, and the other thing. That doesn't mean you shouldn't not say anything about your penny or that, but when you were thinking about going big, I want you to think about going big is
Next year.
big is probably, it's probably 27, probably. But we will ask the question.
thank you.
Yeah, and I am aware because I've been working with some other council members on regional boards, there are a number of other municipalities that are doing housing bonds this year. So it wouldn't be unusual if we could do it. Yeah.
Yeah,
Possible.
we're just behind on the,
Yeah.
on all the
I
steps
think
to be able to
one
do
thing
it.
I would like to see this year, and I know our bond failed last time for this very reason, to get more details on what exactly where the investment is going, and, we all need to agree
Project
on that
level detail.
investments on the projects. And I probably think that would take some time, but I have open mind, I'm ready to listen.
And I want to say into the microphone, Mr. Mayor, we know you're not against affordable housing. We do. We just got so excited to finally be having this. That's what you just saw. This was not us thinking we had to convince you. This was us being like, oh, it's finally happening.
I second that motion, Carissa.
I like the
Thank you.
violent agreement comment.
Yeah.
Violently agreeing from
Yes.
various locations, yeah.
But
And I
think
did
you
move
bring
the
a good
slide
point.
forward if you want to talk about other topics.
But I just
Not
want to
forcing.
say,
Nice try, Dana.
Dan, I just want to say one last thing, but Mayor, we don't, you're absolutely right, by putting 50,000, 1 million, fighting for a penny, I don't think that will solve our problem. So I agree with you that if we do really have good intentions and we do want to make that difference, we do need better planning. And I think that's where your experience comes in handy.
Yeah, and if you had bond money that you could match to projects.
Yes.
Partner with projects.
Meteor Housing.
That would make me feel good as
Yes.
somebody well, I know some people don't think I'm physically conservative, but rather than throwing money
Yes.
at something, have something that you can actually pull from.
Agree.
Yeah, and I'd say that, and just knowing that I think having a work session or some dedicated time towards this, that's probably not part of the capital
This-
budget
yes.
discussion.
Yes, you're in the sprint right now.
My topic.
Yes, and I think your topic is on your list that everybody has received. But yes, we'll work to get that in, even if it's a quarterly, probably knowing what we'll learn with the potential bond discussion is that you're going to have time to do it, especially if the direction isn't to add a penny specifically this year and to get input on if the housing, if that's, including what Heather said, funds the needs for this upcoming year. Knowing that you can also revisit it during the year, technically.
Yes.
I have about 30 seconds I want to say. I took such good notes from what Lori and Bella had said. Bella started talking about how not having affordable housing like affects our community as a whole. And then when Lori was talking about this being more than just affordable housing plans, economic development plans and stability plans, looping back to Chatham Estates, there's approximately 700 people there. And I know that's a drop in the bucket of our 192,000. I know some of those are children, some are maybe older and not working, although if you don't have, some of them may be working until the day they're no longer with us because they are lower income. But just thinking about the conversations we've had with the Chatham Estates residents, we have school workers, hospital workers, small business owners that live out there. Some of them walk to work, some of them take the bus line. They carpool because they have a neighbor that works in the same area. I can't say it's going to be interesting to see what will happen, but it's going to be impactful when most of those are no longer able to be in Cary. A lot of them will not be able to come back to Cary to do those same jobs.
It's estimate 40% will be able to live in Cary, is what I heard.
With assistance and such, yeah. But I think it might be worth, I thought maybe that's where you were going, Bella.
Yeah.
It might be worth having a discussion on whether we want to increase the funding for the Stable Homes Cary program to make up the gap.
And Russ is trying to keep us.
I know, and
Yes.
I think we're
There
on the
are
same
other
page
topics.
because this was a very worthwhile conversation. I am anxiously awaiting discussing what we call the sad list.
Okay.
So if we can get to
Okay.
the not funded.
Real
Yeah,
quick.
I'm going to suggest, because you have a very limited of time to get to that maybe we use some of the April work sessions to keep talking about capital, because if you have one more topic like that, you won't get to much else. And there's a couple of things that I would like to update you
Can she
on.
just make this last comment because
Oh, on the,
that will be
yes, we haven't even introduced the sad list.
So
though.
sad list,
Sad
this was on the happy list, my
Yes.
question was.
Yes, yes.
Barely
The
got
first
Can you
page.
imagine what the sad list would
The
be?
first page of the happy list, yes.
I don't think if you talk
Okay.
about one topic, it counts as a list, y'all.
Can we just make a quick comment?
Yes.
I appreciate that,
Discussion,
Sarika.
lots of that.
Dana, you want to advance us? Maybe
Yes,
we'll get a little
here's the
opportunity here.
not included list.
At least show it on the
The
screen.
sad list.
My first question about this is the ones that are designated as LAP funding. So how does that work? Does that mean we're foregoing funds?
It's possible.
Possible, yes.
You
We hope-
compete every year.
Well, these already have funding, but if you need more, you'd still compete. But further delays could impact what you've already received.
There's different answers to different projects, but I would say that almost guaranteed on several of them that say LAP, we would be giving the money back and have to compete again should you decide to move forward with that project in the future.
And Hagen's probably represents the best example I understand from staff's discussion of it is, if it was maybe a project that didn't have a greenway or any type of pedestrian facilities on it, maybe they would have recommended it. It obviously was in the first pass, it's not in the second pass because there are 2 sidewalks on both sides of the road in that stretch. So, you want to do the project, it's just with all the other competing needs, is it worth doing this year or not?
And I know we don't have as much time to fully spend on it, so maybe we'll look back again. But my quick thoughts are, there have been a number of people that have reached out recently with concerns about
Yes.
wanting to prioritize that. So I think it warrants just an open discussion.
Thank you.
Yes.
That.
Just say it.
Well, so, because I don't think I'm understanding this correctly, because if we had $13 million worth of money sitting there
Yes.
dedicated to this, we would do it. We wouldn't forego free money to get free greenways. So I'm not still understanding then what the LAP designation means there. Does it mean there would be some dollars, but not enough to cover the expense of it?
Some
Or is it because of where it is in its
Correct.
evolution that
This is our cost,
Yes.
I thought you said.
Yeah,
is
that's hard to
only
give
our
you that
cost.
specific, but
Cost
yes.
generally? Yes.
And many of them that were kind of before the escalation in costs, so the costs went way up. But also, to be competitive, we offered more than, so an 80-20 is a normal match. There are many projects that might have a 40-60 or a 50-50 match. And so it really is different for everything. And we can, of course, give you very specific information, particularly on that one, since it's been identified and pulled out.
Russ, just to be clear, you are intending to continue this discussion?
Yes.
We're not going to stop it tonight?
Y'all need to give us more feedback. Sounds like there's interest in
Yes.
giving more feedback. Obviously, you can send it to us. We can talk about this at upcoming work sessions, because while staff's working, they can nod a little bit, so could Dana. Working on the operating, we have a little time to talk about
Russ,
capital.
I'm just sad that Green Level Church Road widening did not make it to the happy list. I'll just stop.
Oh, there's going to be so much of that. You're going to have.
I'm just documenting my thoughts.
Your sadness.
Brittany, go ahead.
If you want to advance us one slide, I'll give you my preview. Oh, one more slide. Or
Okay,
did we go
sorry.
back? This one.
Yes.
So some of my colleagues have already heard, but I'll say for the benefit of everyone, I'm going to go to bat for District A, and I want to have a serious conversation about Lewis Stevens. That is a long-delayed capital project that District A would really like to see. I understand it is a very expensive project, but the conversation would be worthwhile. So we have run out of time tonight, so that is just a little teaser.
And what I would,
And Brittany, it's expensive because it's not, it says it's sidewalk, but it's really the road
Yes.
expansion.
Because anyone who's familiar with that route
It's
knows
road
what
expansion
its
is what I heard.
limitations are.
Drainage,
Yeah.
sidewalk, or multi-use.
and I will,
I think I've heard 15.
I'm on the
I may
same
just
page.
have to.
And it was a bond project, didn't have enough bond funding.
Yes, and you know, that is a very difficult reality that we're dealing with constituents in all of our districts,
Yeah.
is, you know, talking about what it was approved for going on 7 years ago
right.
versus what it costs to do today is an education piece and a limitation. But there's still just the popular notion of, well, you told me 7 years ago
That's right.
that I would get this, and we're still talking about it. So we can keep
Does
talking.
that road need to be resurfaced?
It doesn't have curb and gutter.
Yeah,
You need
Needs to be.
yes.
I don't know if
we
they
even
can
by
own
right
land.
away.
Yeah.
To buy right away.
Very
We have been purchasing right-of-way, I believe.
Okay.
Yes.
Or
Okay.
easements.
Yes.
Or
Okay.
easements.
yep.
Last time I heard it was 12 million. was-
Correct.
That
That
was
was the
years
last
ago.
time we.
It was
might have
last year when we put it on the main,
How much for this project?
12 million.
And I think
I
I'm
think
hearing
it's more
closer to
than
15.
It's 15 now? No,
And-
it was 12 million.
Because we
Some
waited.
has been spent, 'cause designed, possibly right-of-way.
And,
So that's the
Are we,
total of it all.
are we going to
Double
knock
digits.
Wiley's door?
and for a little bit of context, if you were to add up all of the pedestrian, if we went back a few slides, all of those pedestrian line items that are on the happy list, even if we were to say, well, we're not gonna do any of
Still don't
them,
have enough.
it's 3.7 million. So we could fund a fifth.
That's right, you could fund some of it.
Oh, yeah,
Reallocated funding
that makes people
sources.
really.
Yes.
To
Yeah,
Chris's point, love to spend a lot of money on a little bit.
This is exactly why I ask you if we might need additional work sessions.
Yes.
Yes.
And with the
And we
bond,
might as
I would
well.
like to remind you with the bond, it will go on past this year's budget. We'll need to keep talking about it in the summer and the fall
Okay.
with the specific bond projects. Okay.
How much
Russ.
money was left in the bond? Sorry for that.
We can't give you a very exact number. Generally speaking, in the ballpark of 10 to 15 million in the transportation, we think we're
10,
at.
15 million?
Not being spent, not allocated.
Not allocated.
Potentially not allocated.
Not potentially not allocated at this point.
Potentially, it could fund Lewis Stevens.
But we have corporate.
That's why I might have teased the
We
question.
look forward to bringing that detail back to you.
Yes.
That'd be great.
Russ,
Thank you, Dana.
He's
And
trying.
thank you for your.
keep going.
Oh, great comments.
Great question.
Because some of these updates, we started at the last one, last work session, but some were left over from the retreat, which is why I feel some level of urgency of getting this to you, because the most urgent to us is really whether or not to move forward on a business alliance, because we have a consultant that we've selected but not signed a contract on to consider if council wishes to proceed in this engagement or not. You cannot have the conversation again tonight is fine. If you want to move on to other topics and think about it, it just means, at some point, and many times like this, consultants may ask to not take their name out of consideration because they need to move on to other projects. So that's why I feel some urgency
on our papers.
to this.
So Russ, are you looking for the potential for us to make a motion tonight and make a decision on this?
We would like that, yes.
And
if
would
it's
it
something.
come out of the,
This is already budgeted funds
Okay.
in '26, and would determine if more budgeted, determine options to consider, potentially in the future if there are any.
I'll go ahead and reiterate what I said in the last work session, which is, to me, this is not a reflection on the merits of the business alliance. It very well might be a worthwhile pursuit. I just don't know that town dollars are the best source of that investment.
100% agree. I feel like this is really a Chamber of Commerce activity, just my opinion.
Yeah, and I have to say, I met with a lot of the folks, and I think their passion is in the right place. And as you said, it's a very important organization, right? We've seen organizations like these Downtown Business Alliances make a huge difference across the country. So I think they're valuable. The question is, as you both rightly said, who funds that type of work? And I'm not sure that we should be in the business of funding that. I would really like and hope that the chamber would step up and help these folks, because I think that's the right organization where it should be funded.
And we can have that conversation with the chamber as well. And maybe what we also hear you saying, if that's in the form of a motion or not, is not right now.
Do you need a motion to do not right now?
If there's consent, it would probably be best
Make a
to close
motion.
out the issue.
Comfortable with that? I make a motion that we remove the current scope of work cost of $75,000 from our fiscal year 2026
It's really
budget?
not move forward with
We don't
this.
move forward
Do
with
not
it,
come
yeah.
forward, yeah.
there's a motion
Second.
and a second.
Who was the second?
Discussion,
Brittany.
discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
All right, thank you
Unanimous.
for that. And if it needs to come up in the future or more on it as we talk to the chamber. I thought this was something that we wanted to get to because at this point, John's going to be able to tell you that I think, and where's John? It's come up quickly, but I think we're going to be issuing this RFQ this week. He can tell you a little bit of.
I was just talking about this today.
To have a request for qualifications for cricket, and this is something you talked about maybe it's on there, September 11th was the discussion. Obviously, there's been a lot of things going on that have to some degree led to this not being prioritized. John and his team talked about whether to do a RFQ or RFP. There was some feedback by even the PRC, our advisory committee, and I'm probably speaking for you at this point, but I think
But
good
you're doing a
news,
great
trying
job.
to move it forward. That's going to be issued.
Let's say Monday or Tuesday next week.
Okay,
just
next
for-
week.
But hopefully, ideally, this is released by the end of the week. We have gotten really good feedback from lots of different groups, lots and lots of staff input, also the advisory board for PRCR, and it's been a really interesting process trying to figure out what are we really going to be able to learn from the community that wants this and that will engage with us on it. So we're really excited to get this out there and see what comes back.
Novice question. I know the acronyms RFQ and RFP and what they stand for, but what is the difference between
So,
a
yes.
request for
John, do you wanna-
qualifications
here,
versus
I'll
a
shut
request?
up. You can answer.
I will take a shot at it. There are lots of folks I'm still the new guy. I was waiting for a little chuckle there. So,
He is not the new guy.
But on this one I am. So between the two, my understanding, the RFQ is going to allow us to understand what capacity all of the different groups and interested stakeholders and parties have to bring to the table versus a proposal would be asking them to really bring us almost a more finished product and further down the line. And so we aren't really there yet. We have a lot of interest, a lot of grassroots, a lot of ideas, a lot of all of those things. And so trying to figure out, we actually have some thought that there may be a couple groups that end up wanting to work together to bring something forward, which at the state that we're at, to try to make that a finalized formal proposal just feels like a little one step too far, and we want to make sure that we get the opportunity to engage as many folks in a meaningful way as possible.
And you'll short list to get, maybe it's one, maybe it's two, maybe it's three, but then move forward with proposals from a smaller group that you feel very comfortable with that may accomplish what you wish to hear, which I believe the past discussions were to possibly offer something at little to no cost to the town, was something that you all talked about in September.
RFQ to do what? Forgive me, I can't remember.
To
Is this for
provide-
Mills Park?
We asked for RFP for.
You asked for an
the
RFP.
Cricket in Mills Park.
In Mills Park,
Correct.
that's
Yeah.
what I,
For
okay, I
cricket.
just wanted to make sure I recall.
Fields, maybe the
So
whole suite.
maybe the intention was to not like build Cary level facility.
This is where they're
Right.
already playing, right?
Yeah,
We
yeah.
want to build a proper
Yeah, but
field.
it's more
Okay.
about youth cricket, offering just a facility so that somebody could partner with us and build this pitch up, which is going to be very expensive. I think
Yeah.
that's the intention.
Correct.
We'll return to you with updates and see what people give us. So I think it's
How do-
good news.
One question, John, that I keep getting is how would people find out about this? Where do they go?
So it will be posted both on our website, and then we're going to be speaking with and have gotten a lot of questions from folks.
Okay.
Folks who are watching this right now. So there's actually a lot of interest from that community. I feel really good about how we'll be able to get the word
Would you
out.
be able to send me that
We are
information?
sending it all to all of you, and
Okay.
then you can also promote it.
Yeah, because I think, some people have asked for this information and I don't know where to go
Yep.
to get this, so.
Yep.
It will be with you by early next week.
Okay, wonderful, thank you.
So good news. This was the other one I wanted to get to that I also think is good news. If Heather has a really quick moment to tell us the good news.
Yeah, this is an exciting one. This is Rose Park Manor, which is currently welcoming residents. They are open and have signed a number of leases. It's 81 units of deeply affordable senior housing. There are 5 residents from the Chatham Estates Park who have signed leases here. To give you some context, since we're talking about money, this is like a $25 million development. There are tax credits in it for 12 to 15 million, and Cary contributed 3 million in Wake County. I forget the dollar amount for Wake County, but so there's a substantial amount of our money and other government money in this. But they are open. It's right behind Glen Eyre, and it's a beautiful building. They'll have a ribbon cutting or some other event soon that we can all welcome you and give you a tour.
So when you say affordable senior housing, what does that, what is your classification of affordable here?
Yeah, so affordable, they're all affordable at a maximum
30 to
for
50. They have 50.
60%
Oh,
of median
60.
income, and many at 30% too.
So what does that mean in terms of
30% of
number?
area median income. I don't know what the rents are, but we could look up and tell you what,
Let's see.
that's usually the number that rings.
70, and it takes 30%
So there's like
of
30,
your
it's like
income.
$36,000 a year
Income.
is 30% right now.
So people with income of $36,000 can afford to live here? Seniors can afford to
Seniors.
live there?
Mm-hmm.
And is there any restriction with, if they want to bring their family members,
Yes.
like kids?
It is age restricted.
It's age restricted.
Okay, okay.
Well done.
Yeah, thank you.
All right, you already saw the good news about Cedar Street last week. This parking deck is open with 290 new spaces.
Any hints about the other?
And this Academy Street is likely, we hope, going to open next week. Both of these parking decks are, there's some maintenance agreements with regards to, we've created HOAs, kind of condo
We
associations.
have a lot of legal documents to get through to get
Yes.
to opening, but we're working to make it happen.
A quick question I've been asked multiple times. We have parking people in front of our decks because we don't have smart parking. We have somebody who
That's, I would say that's true. We use
tells you whether or
car
not there's.
park.
Car park,
For
that's it.
special events or busy, specifically at the Walnut Street deck, busy weekends.
Right, like Friday night market, as an example, had someone standing there. Will we also have that at Rogers and?
We hope not, because of the, Cedar Street is just public, in, out. You don't have library users. We have a 3-party agreement, if you will, library and then the apartment complex with the Walker. who do not have dedicated spaces. It's mixed-in spaces, so that one's very complicated from operations. This one, Academy Street's going to have nested parking, so it also, too, could be a little bit easier to manage with regards to you get to the top or 2 floors up and there's a turnaround spot because you can't go through where the residents park. So in theory, these are going to be a little bit easier on operations. But we're thinking about using some of those parking ambassadors for pimento cheese.
Right.
Parking to parking ambassadors, yes, just to see what we learn.
Okay. We've received a couple of emails from people asking about it.
Yep, good questions, and we've updated some information on our website. When that one goes live, hopefully next week, even more information. And then I'll just end in this because this is something we haven't updated you on. Near and dear to Jamie's heart, obviously, as we're continuing to study Cary Apex and Holly Springs wastewater capacity. And just to show you some signs of when we may expect to get some study being completed this summer and then deliver results to you all in the fall of this year. Continue to follow up with my counterparts both at Holly Springs and Apex as we talk about this. Holly Springs obviously is very interested as a result of some of their industry that they've brought to the region. So we had a joint meeting with Holly Springs Council that may be something that there's interest in doing again as we deliver results of these studies and talk about capacity and partnership with Holly Springs. So I just wanted to update on that. And with that, I'll probably end on this slide. There's nothing else.
Well, I was just going to give a little history. Holly Springs was a part of our wastewater in the beginning, years ago.
They were?
Yep, and they pulled out.
They pulled out.
Oh, I
Yes.
didn't know that.
Yep.
Yeah, and now they have a water allocation from Jordan Lake.
Right.
And now they want to work through council, or work through Cary to get water as well. So there's quite a little bit of fallout from that because they backed out. Now they have to kind of ease their way back in.
Yeah.
Yes, but lots of makings of deals and, fine points that we need to be talked about as we get results of that study. And that's all we really have for
I just want to share how perfect the format is for these capital project descriptions, by the way. This is
This is
absolutely
good
perfect.
information.
You also, these are the descriptions. It says that if you saw for all the 138 million, and to make sure that was clear to everyone, that you can, whittle your way through all of them.
Oh, this is the
because
wish list.
It provides all the detail,
Yeah.
but you can see what they are. And then you have a pulse report was the other thing in your packet regarding comments to date on budget input.
Anything else?
Just one last thing. I really like to thank the fire department. I was lucky enough to participate in the community emergency response team this weekend. And, we all hope that we'll never see a firefighter because if so, at our house or somewhere else, it would likely be in an emergency. But the firefighters were amazing with the 18 people who were in this class. And I heard from each, once I was outed as a council member, thank you. I heard from each and every single resident how proud they were to be part of Cary and how immensely impressed they were by the Cary Fire Department. So thank you all for that.
Anything else? All right, we're adjourned. Thanks, everyone.